You're watching Determined Women with Connie Koepfinger.
Welcome to Determined Women. I'm Coni Koepfinger, and I'd like to welcome you to this program that looks at women that are working in the theater and are determined to get the message of live theater, new theater, out there. Nan Barnett is our guest today. She is a new play developer, producer, and advocate. She is the executive director of the National New Play Network, an alliance of more than 100 professional theaters with a dedication to the development, production, and continued life of new plays and the innovation and implementation of impactful programs for the new play field. She's a former LORT managing director, now serves on the Artistic Council for the O'Neill Center. Nan, welcome to Determined Women.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
It's wonderful. You have done so much for new plays, and tell us how it all started. What exactly do you do? When did it start?
Let's see. I came to National New Play Network as its executive director in 2013 after having served back in the mid-2000s on its executive committee and as the president of the organization. I began working on new plays in the late 80s when I moved to Florida and fell in with a gang that was producing exclusively new and developing work. And that company grew to be a big LORT C company, and we were produced for 24 seasons. And then I came to NNPN.
And was it already started when you came to it, or what was it like when you came there?
Yeah, so at NNPN, the company that I was running in Florida, it's called Florida Stage, joined NNPN in, I believe it's 4th or 5th year of existence. We were the first LORT company to join. And prior to that, the organization had been created by a group of artistic directors and managing directors who were running small to mid-sized companies who were really focused on new work and looking for a way to be able to find some strength in numbers and to be able to share the work that they were creating with other theaters across the country. When the organization was about 10 years old, it started its Rolling World Premiere program, which is the piece of what we do that most people are familiar with. That's where a playwright gets 3 or more productions within a 12-month period, with the playwright participating in each of those productions and NNPN providing administrative and financial support for those theaters choosing to participate in that role. Those theaters are member theaters, of which there are now 110, I think, across the country, ranging in size from $50,000 a year annual budgets up through Lincoln Center and Oregon Shakes and some of the country's largest companies.
So, being a playwright, I adore what you do. I honor what you do. But for our listeners, tell us why new work. Why is it important? Why?
Because we have to continue to hold a mirror up to ourselves as a society and as humans. So if you don't continually have new voices adding new works to the canon, you're going to lose perspective. And as we want to be able to address the issues of today, to have a shared history of what it was like to be in our worlds wherever we are. And of course now with the way the market for new work has exploded, that we're being able to share those works all around the world.
And okay, so what's the myth? Like why are people afraid of new work? Why do they want to keep doing the same old?
I think for me personally, it really is a myth. And we're working right now, and NPN is working with Theater Development Fund to do some interviews all across the country with audience members to talk about why they come or don't come to new work. I believe personally that it's we're continuing to program based on an old idea that you have to have a title that's known or a playwright that's known. I think that our audiences are much more experimental than we believe they are, and that if you market a play correctly, that it's really about a subject matter It's about a social experience, coming with other people to see a work and then to be able to share with each other how that work affected you afterwards. I think there are ways to do it, and I don't find it nearly as dangerous as it used to be. Of course, some of the support that NNPN is providing helps alleviate some of that in terms of providing some financial support, helping get the play developed and getting it up to the best it can possibly be by the time it's being shared, and allowing companies to do new work, premiere work that has had a great deal of input, collaborative input from multiple organizations on it prior to it coming to their stage.
That's so wonderful, and I've never been anything but a playwright. I went to college and started out as a playwright and ended up as a playwright. And then I went off to teach. I got a master's degree in composition English, and then I went off to teach for a while in literary studies. But, I was still doing theater. But the scariest thing about being a playwright is when somebody says, okay, what's next? And you don't know. And you don't know if they're going to like your kid. And you don't know. But it's so important to do this. And it's so important. And, that's how I met my partner, Joe Eisen. He was on LinkedIn, and he said he had a group started saying, why does Broadway have to keep doing the same old, same old? And I had quite a bit of regional and local things and things in New York and avant-garde stuff. But I always wanted to have my musical work. I wanted to see bigger picture. I have something to say. And, I know this. But the funny thing is like, why do they do the same old stuff? Why take a movie and turn it into a play? I mean, what are they thinking?
Well, they're thinking about
money,
how to spend how to spend the least marketing dollars for the largest return. Luckily, our regional theater system doesn't really work that way, and in those places, you can take the larger opportunities and be able to develop the work that goes ahead and has an impact both now and in the future.
Okay, Nan, so let's get up close and personal here. So you read a lot of plays. What all do you do? What do you look for in a play? When you start foraging, what do you look for? What do you find?
Well, the great thing about what I do now at NNPN is that I'm not having to look for any one thing. I'm looking for things that are, I think, might be accessible to any of those 110 theaters across the country. So where I used to be, with my producer hat on, I would say to playwrights, why are you doing this? Don't you want anybody to do your play? This is impossible to produce because of the way I produced. But now I have the way 110 theaters produce, and there's always somebody who's willing to do something. So it's very exciting to not have those constrictions anymore, and to be able to be, a matchmaker for those plays and those projects. And there's a big piece of the network that's really about collaboration between the theaters. Remember, the network is really about, it's an affiliation of theaters. It's a service organization for the theaters that are doing new work. So although we are supplying a lot of wonderful things for playwrights, we're really about how we can work together as a group of theaters to be able to share those works.
And I think that's the most exciting thing about theater is the collaboration. When you, all of a sudden, you get together with somebody that does this and somebody does that, and the actors take it there. And, that's fascinating. I did a class with non-majors at Penn State, and we developed new work. And it was just fascinating to see it all come together when people collaborate. It's almost like a miniature world, that's what's fascinating.
Well, one of the other things, too, about what NNPN does is this idea of innovating and implementing for the field. So that collaboration that happens out of us collaboratively as artistic and management and literary leaders from across the country working on new works, when we get together and we talk about what are the issues that everybody's bumping up against, what are the questions that can't seem to get answered, and out of that come these really wonderful programmatic solutions for the field, not just for our members, but things like the Rolling World Premiere Program, of course, the New Play Exchange, which is, really, I think, changing how plays are shared and discovered and produced across the country, that you can go into this database and be able to search through and get exactly the play that your organization needs or that you want to read or that you want to be able to say something with. The beyond just the work as in the productions that are getting done, it's that work that's getting done that has a larger impact on more and more people besides just the audiences that are walking through the doors of our member theaters.
That, and it's fascinating. You're global. I mean, this whole thing, and it takes a global personality to do something like this, to see a play grow and breathe and move from theater to theater. It's like watching your kid travel,
Absolutely.
That's an exciting thing. Yeah. So, what's the most challenging thing about your career?
Right now it's about packing. I'm leaving this weekend. I'm going Portland, Sacramento, and New York before I come back. So it's like 3 different climates and a week's worth of clothes. And it's one of the really, really real joys of what I do is that I travel around the country and I see these subsequent productions. I see multiple productions. This next week, I'll see 2 plays that are getting rolling world premieres. I'll see them in their launching production, and then I'll see them again in a few months at a different theater and in a different town with a different audience, with a different marketing team. So, and when we talk about rolling world premieres, remember, they're not tours. They are each theater is doing their own separate and distinct production with an entirely different artistic team, marketing team, in vastly different spaces, in vastly different cities. So getting to, as much as I can joke about having to pack for 3 climates, it really is wonderful to get to see those productions in different hands and to see how the writers have taken what they learned in role partner number 1, and by the time it gets to partner number 3, how the play is morphed and changed.
Now, did you think this up? Who came up with this idea?
It was a group of us that had been working together, again, through the network, the executive committee. Our founder, David Goldman, was really instrumental, and Seth Rosen, who was president then, who's the artistic director at Interact. We gathered a group of us together and said, there's 2 real issues here. One, that this wonderful group of theaters is developing work all over the country that's not getting seen beyond its initial production. And 2, there's no mechanism for being able to share those works. So out of that came the Rolling World Premiere Program, which has now affected more than 60 plays, and there's more than, I think it's 700 subsequent productions of those plays after they've finished their roles, literally in countries all over the world.
It's just fascinating to me. You're making this a science. I've always said this, that what we do, what we are, what we eat, and what we put on our head, what we put on our artistic palate, then that's what we're going to become. And education is just as important as entertainment, and we become a nation of eating junk food entertainment if we don't do this. And you've actually made it a science. It's fabulous.
Well, so many of our core theaters are mission-driven towards community work, social issues. So I think we certainly have some plays that are just entertaining in our canon, but a lot of them are things that are really important about the issues of today and probably the issues of tomorrow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, tell me now, I want to talk a little bit about your work with women. What the exciting things you've done with women specifically? A couple of festivals?
Sure. So I had the opportunity this last year to be a part of the Women's Voices Theater Festival, which happened here in Washington, D.C., where over the course of about 6 weeks, there were 50 fully produced world premieres by female playwrights. And NPN was gracious enough to let me take that as a side gig, and it was a remarkable experience. The 7 artistic directors and managing directors of the largest theaters here in the DC region came together about 2 years ago with this idea of doing it. And Jojo Roof and I were able to come together as partners and serve as producers for the festival. There were also a ton of events surrounding the festival. It was just great fun and really impactful. It had huge press all around the world, and there's a discussion about doing another version of it in the next couple of years. So I'm enjoying watching those plays move across the country.
That's exciting. It's exciting. You're literally birthing these children that would have been homeless. It's so exciting. So exciting. All right. So now, let's talk a little bit about how your career started. We know how it started, but let's talk about what drove you into this career. Like, what was your family like? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Middle Tennessee with an extraordinarily supportive family who I think probably had no idea what to do with me. I was a kid actor, and they drove a bazillion miles to help me work, and grew up doing mostly musicals, then went off to North Carolina School of the Arts for their program, which was really classically focused, and started writing and producing and directing musical reviews for money on the side. And that just led into this realization that I was really happiest being bossy, and that I, as much as I enjoyed doing the work myself, I really liked making it all happen. And that transitioned into helping found this company in Florida and growing that organization. And when I found NNPN and started to see the real possibilities of not only the work I was producing as a managing director, but also all this other great work that was happening across the country, and that I might be able to be a part of helping those plays have a subsequent life, helping those writers get to that next production. And then the idea of this ability to answer, or at least respond to some of those questions that we all sat around and banged our heads against the wall about a lot. And I'm afraid I'm more of a doer than a thinker sometimes, and I get frustrated when everybody's talking about the same thing, but no one's moving the conversation forward. Oh, so this organization and its mission and focus on making positive changes and taking an action, even if it's not the right thing. NNPN's huge on piloting programs, which I just love. It's like, throw it up there and see if it works, and if it doesn't, then you move on to the next thing. And if it does, then it can really, really change our industry. And so that was a good fit for me. People who know me for a long time say to me that this is the perfect job for me, and I agree. I think it's the best job in American theater. I love what I do.
Can you think of anybody that has, you're quite a mentor to many people, I'm sure, and people hold you, as look up to you as a wonderful influence in their life. But who were your influences? Who inspired you?
Oh, well, I come from a family of amazing women, so I think that's a big piece of it. My mom taught first grade in a small town in the South for more than 50 years, and is just a force of nature. So I think she taught us that you could do whatever you want if you put enough time and energy and focus on it, and that being smart and being a leader was a great attribute. And so I started there. I had an amazing high school drama teacher named Kathy Krause Sawyer, who's now an artistic director of a theater in West Virginia, who was really taught me to fly in a way, just to be fearless about what was going on. I've had great mentors in my life as a managing director. And as you said, I get so inspired by working with other people, with collaborators. David Goldman, who founded NNPN, and those artistic directors of the theaters that were the core beginning group of NNPM, Howard Shawitz. Now my office is at Woolly Mammoth, and I get to see him on a regular basis. Seth Rosen and Jack Ruler from Mixed Blood, and the younger comers, the women who are coming up as artistic directors and managing directors. But mostly I get inspired by, I think, the writers and what it is that we can do to help them get their ideas and words out there. We have just some of the most amazing artists within our NNPM affiliated artists, not only playwrights, but also producers and literary managers, managing directors, people who are so dedicated to the next level of the American canon. It's hard not to be excited about what I do every day.
That's wonderful. And you're just beaming talking about what you do. It's wonderful. What advice would you give people coming into the theater now, whether they're young or they're old or whatever? What one piece of advice would you give them?
I would say have as many skills as you can so that you are as employable as possible.
Yeah.
And don't give up. Don't take no. If you have a voice and you have something that you feel needs to be said, just get it out there. Don't stop. Don't let people stifle that. But also be smart and, think of it as a career. Think of it as your job. I used to say to actors all the time, I don't need to see you in a suit and tie, but I need to know that you've put some thought into this audition and to what you look like when you walk in the door. And I think that's the same for everybody. It is a career, and being a flaky artist doesn't make for a long career. It just makes for flakiness.
It does.
But I think it's important to understand that it's a business and to take advantage of things. If you're not on New Play Exchange, you need to get out there and get on it and be aware, participate in as many activities and meet as many people. The networking part of the network is what makes the network work here at NNPN. And
cool.
You never know who you're going to meet that's going to have an impact on you today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. So pay attention.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nan Barnett from the New Play Network, the National New Play Network. Fascinating work that you do. Thank you for all you do. And let's say a special happy birthday to her son,
Hunter McConnell, who's a playwright.
Happens to be a playwright. Of course, I wouldn't expect any less. So happy birthday, Hunter.
Thank you,
Thank you so much for visiting with us today. And I'm sure people will learn so much from this. And thank you for all you do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching and listening Determined Women, hosted by Coni Koepfinger, here on New Earth International.